Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morgan, Roth the Motor City Manmouth, and we have another new individual and broadcaster that we want to add to the mix. So, as they would say with the Johnny Carson show, here's JB Ellis.
How's it going, guys? JB Ellis, Sideline Sports. Every Tuesday, 8:30, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Also, 4 a.m. every morning on DB&A Television and Quantum Star TV, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Pleasure being here, guys.
Well, looking forward to a great broadcast. And tonight, what we do is we address this on January 14th, 2022, with the coaching carousel part one. Now that the assistant coaches are in places and we're dealing with free agency, there's no better time than to bring it up again. Individuals that were very helpful on that first episode were Greg Fuchs, John Shearer, Rick Curdy, Mel Farr, and Steve. Well, we got the two holdovers and the new guy here, JB Ellis. And just to give you an idea about JB Ellis, too, because he does a wonderful job with Sideline Sports. And more importantly, we do plan to bring him on the Real and the Rare, which will be a non sports related show. So we expect him to come on a couple of times a month. So we're going to go out there and have JB be more versatile outside of the sports world. So, with that said, okay, let's get to it. We're going to talk about the 9 coaching hires. You guys can give us your opinion on them, and then we'll talk about some of the guys that were not hired, and then we can take off from there. So, JB, since you're wearing that Miami Dolphins jersey, I'm going to read them off one at a time. Lead off with Mike McDaniel of the Dolphins, hired from the 49ers. What's your take on that hire, JB?
So, I was first of all shocked that Flores lost his job. That, everything that came out after he lost his job and then the lawsuit, I'm still in shock about it because, he took a team that was going nowhere when nobody was doing anything and turned it around. And he was a little bit difficult to deal with reading from all the different things in the press, but he still turned the team around. So for them to go out there and get rid of him, it says the big disconnect that the front office had with him. And then to go to the 49ers to get Mike McDaniels, they have a good staff there. I think that was a decent move, but just hard to imagine moving away from a guy that turned the team around when they really shouldn't have done anything for a couple of years.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he had 2 winning seasons in a row, and I think that firing caught a lot of people off guard. Of all coaches that got let go, I didn't see that one coming, right, Mel Farr?
Yeah, I definitely didn't see that one coming, especially the way Miami finished at the end of the year. They finished strong. I think they won, 7 out of the last 8 or something like that. They finished very, very strong. And when you're talking about, usually coaches get fired because owners don't like the direction the team's heading in. Well, I mean, they were headed in the right direction. I think, because the NFL is such a copycat league, I think they want to probably try to get an offensive-minded head coach in there to try to develop Tua. I think there was some dissatisfaction with Flores and Tua because there was a lot of talk that they were really looking at Deshaun Watson. They're taking a real hard look at him, possibly even trading for him. I think they wanted to get rid of some of that noise in the building and get and try to give Tua, make him feel comfortable that he is their quarterback and they want him to be quarterback and try to give him everything that he needs to succeed down there in South Florida.
Yeah, I think that's the only reason why they got rid of Flores and they brought in Daryl Bevel as his quarterback coach. So I think that's a good combination. So, Steve, what are your thoughts about the hiring of Mike McDaniel?
I thought it was a good hire. Like everyone else, I was really surprised that they let Flores go. As you know, I mean, I've always been a big Flores fan. So I think that was a big mistake. And like Mel said, usually the owner fires a head coach because he doesn't like the direction the team is going. And if he loses the locker room, and neither one of those were true. I mean, the Dolphins finished strong. They had 2 winning seasons in a row, which they hadn't done in quite a few years. And his players believed in him. I mean, they went through that rough patch in the middle of the season where they lost a bunch of games in a row, and that team never quit. And then they turned it around, won 7 in a row. I think they dropped, it was either just their last game or the last 2, but knocked them out of the playoffs. But they finished really, really strong. But back to McDaniel, I think that's a really good hire, and we'll see how he works out down there. As we all know, Miami is kind of it's a tough place for any kind of longevity.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, you think about it, the Dolphins ended up losing to the Jacksonville Jaguars earlier in the year, and that snapped Jacksonville's 20-game losing streak. And yeah, I don't remember the last time he had so much turnover in Miami. Of course, they got used to Don Shula. They had Jimmy Johnson for a little while, Dave Wannstedt ever since then as a coach's turn. So there's no question about it that you kind of wonder. I actually wonder in my mind, would he have gotten fired even if they had made the playoffs, judging by the way this thing looks on the surface? JB, what are your thoughts? Do you think he would have gotten fired even if the Dolphins had made the playoffs?
I look back at the benching of Tua, and we talked about this on Sideline Sports. As everyone knows, because Sean's been on here, he's a huge Dolphin fan. And I explained to him a couple of times, Tua is a young quarterback. He's going to be your future. You can't bench him in close games. He's got to learn. Let him take his lumps. I think that was where he lost his job. There was talk about bringing in Watson. They never did. And then you have the benching of Tua. I don't think it would have mattered if they made the playoffs tonight. I think there was just something that was a disconnect between him and the front office that was just too much.
JB, I agree with you 1,000%. I really do. So whether he would have gotten in the playoffs, to me, I think Flores was a gunner either way. Steve out and Mel, why don't you both comment on that? Then we'll talk about the next coaching hire.
Go ahead, Mel.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's a great question to ask. I mean, it's not like coaches don't get fired even though they make the playoffs. I mean, that's happened before. I remember when Marty Schottenheimer went 14-2 and lost his job. Right. So, it can happen. I mean, if they had it in their mind that they wanted to move on from Flores because they wanted somebody that was going to be a little bit more supportive of the owner's pick, who was the quarterback, then then they're within their right to go ahead and do that, and they probably would have done that regardless of how they would have finished the season. Now, it probably would have been a little bit more difficult if they went and ran the table and won the Super Bowl. But I mean, if they were able to get in the playoffs and they lost in the first round, there's no question that it's a possibility that he could have still lost his job.
Steve?
Yeah, I think he was going to lose it regardless, because of the story that came out later on between him and ownership. So I think even if they had made the playoffs, unless they made a deep run, I think he was going to get fired.
Fair enough. Okay, let's move on to the next one. A division I'm all too familiar with, as Chris Berman would say, the NFC Norris. Okay, Matt Eberflus for the Chicago Bears. Obviously was an assistant coach for Indianapolis. So, all right, JB.
I mean, you have Justin Fields and you go with a defensive-minded coach that did a great job at Indianapolis. And then you go and trade Khalil Mack this week. So I'm a little confused as to what the direction is as an organization, but I think it's a good hire. I think he's going to do a good job there, but I just don't know where they're going with what they're doing right now.
Mel?
Yeah, I mean, I've never really heard of the guy. So, I mean, I don't know a whole lot about him. I haven't done a whole lot of research and trying to see, what type of a coach he is, what coaching tree he learned under. I don't know a whole lot about him, but JB makes a great point. You got a young quarterback, you bring in a defensive-minded head coach, and you get rid of your best defensive player. So, what are they doing? Are they in for a full-blown rebuild? I mean, what's going on there? I don't know who they have as offensive coordinator. I can't remember who they hired as offensive coordinator. But again, I mean, they're again, like I said, the NFL is a copycat league, and you look at what Buffalo Bills have done, and McDermott. He's a defensive-minded coach, and he's done a great job up there. And even Vrabel has done a great job. And I think defensive-minded coaches actually protect the quarterback a little bit more so because they really understand the importance of a solid running game. And they develop that running game. You look at Buffalo; they run the football very well. Look at Tennessee; they run the football very well. They're very, very balanced. They don't ask their quarterback to do a whole lot. So maybe that's what they're thinking about doing with Justin Fields. They're not asking him to do so much, building some pieces around him, building it from the inside out, from that offensive line on out, and making sure they establish a very, very good, solid running game. Because if you have a good running game, then you can compete. You can be in a lot of ball games, and you just ask him to make plays on third down situations, third and short, third and manageable situations. You don't put him in those third and long situations or have second and long situations. Put him in second and manageable, third and manageable, and he can be successful.
All right, Steve.
Yeah, I thought that was an intriguing decision by the Bears because where they have a young quarterback with Justin Fields, I assumed, like a lot of people did, that they were going to hire an offensive coach. But, it's interesting to see how this all pans out. But like everybody already said, the big head scratcher to me was trading Khalil Mack. I thought that was, I know it was a lot of it had to do with money, but, he's still a really big impact player. And it's tough to get rid of that kind of leadership on your football team. I thought that was a really curious move on their part, and now Allen Robinson's going to be gone. So I don't know. I don't know what's up.
Well, the only thing I'll say is I just hope that they surround Fields with some great offensive coaches because we all know that, Bill Belichick, obviously, Steve, you've worked with him, great defensive mind. And, of course, as long as you surround a young quarterback with good offensive coaches, that helps their development. All right, we'll go on to the next one. And this one's obviously a pretty intriguing hire. I kind of like the hire myself. Nathaniel Hackett of Denver. Now, I think a lot of people thought that when he got hired, however, that was a ticket to Aaron Rodgers. That was the assumption out there. So, and obviously...
And we were all wrong.
Yeah, we were all wrong there, weren't we? And little did we know that Russell Wilson would end up being the QB there. That'll be for another broadcast. But, okay, Steve, we're going to lead off with you on this one. Let's assess the hire of Nathaniel Hackett out in Denver.
Yeah, I think it's a good hire. They needed to get their team straight. I mean, they have a really solid football team, and they were only missing one piece, and now they have that. I think he's going to do a great job there. I do. I think that Denver. I mean, that division is going to be tough. There's no guarantees because they're all playing each other every other week. So, it might turn out to be only one playoff team out of that group because of them all playing each other. But I think Hackett's going to do just fine there. I think it was a good hire.
Mel?
I mean, I think Russell Wilson makes that a good hire. I think if Vic Fangio was still there and he had Russell Wilson, I think his fortunes would be different. I think things would be different for him. I mean, you look at Bill Belichick when he was at Cleveland and they didn't have a quarterback, and then he gets over to New England. He just kind of, Tom Brady kind of falls into his lap and kind of changed his fortunes because he was on his way out before that happened with Tom Brady, before Tom Brady fell in his lap. So, I haven't really studied much on Nathaniel Hackett, to be honest with you. They change coaches so much now. It's just it really has you spinning in the head the way they change coaches now because you look at some guys get 1 year, some guys get 2 years. I think Vic Fangio had 3 years, but he never had a quarterback. He never had that guy. And most of the reasons why coaches get fired is because they don't have that guy or they didn't develop that guy the way that the way that management thought that he should have been developed. So it's a godsend for Nathaniel Hackett to have a guy like Russell Wilson because he knows he has that guy. So it's going to pan out to be a great hire because they got him a quarterback. They got him that player. If you solidify that position, you have a chance to compete in any league. If you don't have somebody, you don't have a guy or that guy at that position, it's very, very difficult to compete.
Yeah, good point too. That you brought about Vic Fangio. If you're handed a Rolls Royce like you are with Russell Wilson, and everybody thought Rodgers was coming in there, then it's one thing. But one interesting point though is if Nathaniel Hackett can win with Blake Bortles in Jacksonville, he can't be all that bad. And of course, he had a good working relationship with Aaron Rodgers. All right, with that said, I'm going to hand the rock off to JB Ellis to give me your take on Nathaniel Hackett.
So, I mean, right off the bat, Matt LaFleur and Hackett kept the Packers offense together with all the Aaron Rodgers shenanigans. I mean, just imagine your leader of your team says, I don't want to be here. And they come out and they still win the 1 seed and have a great year. You know, as the offensive coordinator, that says you're keeping your offense together and you're doing well. So I think between that and Denver bringing in Wilson, you know, he's set up for success. They had a nice offense to begin with before, and now they're giving him the quarterback that they need. So, you know, I think he's shown the ability to lead the offense. Now we'll see if he can do it with the whole team, but I like it.
Well, the amazing part is when we came up with the idea with Nathaniel Hackett, you know, you wondered who he was going to have as his quarterback. So he was a hire. So let me ask you this, okay, and then we'll move on to Kevin O'Connell with Minnesota. Okay, let's take Russell Wilson out of the equation, all right, and just go if we try to play it the way it was prior. Steve, would that have been a good hire before we knew what was going to ultimately transpire?
With Hackett, are you talking
Yeah.
about? Yeah, I think it still would have been a good hire. I think he's a good coach. I mean, you know, would he have success in that division if he didn't have Russell Wilson? Probably not. I mean, that division's loaded with good quarterbacks and good football teams, and he has a good team all around him. The one thing they lacked, you know, they weren't going anywhere with Drew Lock. I mean, that's a given. So, you know, would he have had that success we believe he's going to have with Drew Lock? No, I don't think so. But I still think it was a good hire.
Well, what about you, Mel? I know you're not familiar with the coach per se. Do you want to defer on that, or do you feel it would have been a good hire either way?
Well, I think to bring in an offensive coach with a young quarterback, I think it would have helped them offensively without question. You brought up Blake Bortles. You know, what they did with Blake Bortles down there in Jacksonville, they didn't rely on him that much. They had a very strong running game and a lights out defense. I mean, they hit you in the mouth back then, and that's kind of how you have to do it. You got to build the teams from the inside out. If you go in there, you don't ask your quarterback to do too much. You establish a good running game, which I think they had a fairly decent running game last year. You have a chance. I mean, you're going to be in some ball games, and you play good defense. You know, as long as you're able to win the line of scrimmage, you have an opportunity. So, you know, if he came in there with that mindset, it'd be a good hire for the Broncos.
Yeah, another thing I should point out before I defer to you, JB, is the fact that he had Leonard Fournette as his primary running back, and the Lions just actually signed DJ Chark. So he's a really good addition for Detroit. And when DJ Chark, I think he was a heck of a player with Jacksonville, less the injuries. So there's no question, in my opinion, that if he could work with that, God only knows where he's going to go. All right, JB. So we'll go back to that. Would he have been a good hire either way?
So when you look at what he's done with Bortles and Orton, and then, you know, the years he had with Rodgers, and then just like I said, helping keep that offense together with the whole debacle with Aaron Rodgers, a lot can be said for that. That's the kind of guy you want leading your team. You know, you want a strong leader, and I think that was, you know, a good hire in that respect. I don't think it was a bad move either way.
All right, well, we'll stay in the North Division. As I just mentioned moments ago, Kevin O'Connell, Minnesota Vikings. We all know he was the brain behind what took care of place with the LA Rams. So, all right, JB, we'll go ahead and let you talk about Kevin O'Connell.
So, I mean, the Rams have been a really good team for a few years. They have a lot of pieces. You know, am I sold on the Rams coaching staff? No. I'm not really sure that this was the way to go. I think there were other people out there that could have been a better hire. They could have got Harbaugh at one point. I know they had him in for an interview. I don't know if I like this hire.
So you're not sold on this Kevin O'Connell hire in Minnesota?
No.
It's okay. So we're here for opinions, and you're giving me your honest shot. And you know what? You could be right. I mean, I know Jim Harbaugh was a hot candidate for that job. Or I don't know if he was a candidate, but they were certainly looking at him as a finalist of the job until that situation went south. But you're not endorsing it, right, JB?
No, not at all.
All right, Mel, what do you think?
When he said Jim Harbaugh, I mean, he basically packed up his office and told everybody goodbye. He thought he had the job.
Right.
I mean, he was getting ready to, I mean, he was on his way out the door. He thought he had the job, and when he got there, he realized he was still one of many, I guess. I'm with JB. I'm not all that impressed about it because really Sean McVay calls the plays. He's the offensive coordinator. He's the brainchild behind all that madness that goes on with the Rams. So, you know, the knock against Eric Bieniemy for not getting a head coaching job was that he doesn't necessarily call the plays. That you know, because you see Andy Reid, he's got his little paper, and you see Bieniemy, he's got his, and you know they both got headset on. Well, who actually has the green dot is talking to the quarterback? I don't know. So the big thing, the knock against him is he's not really the offensive coordinator. Well, we know Kevin O'Connell's not the offensive coordinator. We know who the mad scientist is out there in LA. It's Sean McVay. Sean McVay calls the plays. Now, this gentleman may have the title as offensive coordinator, but Sean McVay runs that offense. That's his offense. So no, I'm not very impressed with this hire either. And then on top of that, you know, what are you going to do with Kirk Cousins? I mean, you just paid him all the money. This guy here, man, I mean, for being a 4th-round draft pick or wherever he was drafted, he's made a ton of money. You just guaranteed him, 2 more years, I think it was?
Yeah, it just got extended. Yeah.
Just got extended for 2 more years at a very hefty fee. You know, so you know you haven't made a change there, and I think that's been the problem. That's what people have been complaining about. Now they do run the football very well. If they come in there and they do that, you know, try to do the Rams offense and run the football very well. I mean, they have weapons there. Kirk Cousins is a serviceable quarterback. I mean, I like him. I liked him all the way back when he was at Michigan State. I like Kirk Cousins. I think he's a very good NFL quarterback. But is he going to get you over the hump? I don't know. And defensively, have they fixed those things on the defensive side of the ball? I know they let Anthony Barr go. They're losing people on the defensive side of the ball. Are they going to fix that side of the ball, which Mike Zimmer was supposed to be great at? So we'll just have to see. But no, as far as him being hired as a head coach, I'm not impressed with that. No.
All right, Steve.
Same here. I didn't see the sense in that one. For all the same reasons everyone just stated, so I won't sit there and beat a dead horse. But I wasn't really impressed with this hire. I thought, I think the Vikings missed on this one. Time will tell. And, Kirk Cousins, I don't get, I just don't get paying him the kind of money that they're paying him. I don't see it. I think this is a team that's kind of stuck in where they're at.
Well, I guess I'll make it totally unanimous here. I'm not for the hire either, and I think the Vikings made a mistake when they didn't hire Jim Harbaugh, because I think Jim Harbaugh would have been a far better hire. I should point out that the Sports Exchange can be heard here. This broadcast is simulcast. You can hear it on Spreaker, Spotify, Apple, Google, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts. Also, don't hesitate to subscribe to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel so you can see it and you get all the notifications. So, and of course, www.southfloridatribune.com as well. So there's lots of different ways to hear this show and all the other ones here on the WSFT network, which consists of now 6 to 7 broadcasts, as well as our online site, which Candy Ebley does a remarkable job keeping it going. So just want to get those identifications out there early, and I'll remind you again later on in the broadcast. With that said, we go from Kevin O'Connell to Doug Peterson. I know we did a show on this entirely on it, but you know what? It's good to be able to put them all together. And you know what, JB? Go for it.
I don't know. I mean, I wasn't sold when Doug Peterson was a coach last time. I'm not a huge fan. I think with the Eagles, he got lucky that Foles came in and did well. Carson Wentz, as you can see, is a train wreck. I don't know. I'm not a fan of Doug Peterson. And maybe because I'm a Giant fan, I'm a little biased. But yeah, I'll be honest. Not on my high side.
I got to tell you something, JB. As I noticed you during this broadcast, I love your. Don't you see some here, Steve, with this guy? He's not afraid to tell it like it in his own subtle way. And you know what, JB? That to me is extremely impressive. I really like your style, buddy. We got plans for you here, my man. You're doing all good. No problem. So obviously you're not buying the Kool-Aid for Doug Peterson, right, JB?
No, not at all.
Okay. All right, Mel. Are you buying the Kool-Aid for Doug Peterson in Jacksonville?
Yeah, I mean, you have to look at his track record. I mean, well, he's a made man. Let's say that first and foremost. And he won with Wentz, the train wreck, and with Nick Foles. He won a Super Bowl with those two quarterbacks. Where Carson Wentz went to Indianapolis, hasn't done obviously hasn't done much, and got traded to Washington. Nick Foles, he hasn't been able to do much since he left there. So you have to be impressed with what he's been able to do with those two quarterbacks. Now he has a legitimate quarterback. You see what they're doing over there. They spent a ton of money over there. Bad football teams are bad generally because they got bad football players. So now they're getting rid of all the bad football players and bringing in some good football players. I mean, you can't fire all the players. What you can do is fire the coach, and then the coach comes in and he fires all the players. So they're spending a lot of money in free agency. They're getting him some players, and I think you're going to see a much improved Jacksonville team this year. I think that Doug Peterson has proved himself to be a very decent coach. I was surprised when he got fired in Philadelphia, to be honest with you. And I think that was all over Carson Wentz. I think he wanted to move on from Carson Wentz. I think, and the ownership didn't want to move on. And I think he's been proven right that that he needed something more than Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz unfortunately can't stay healthy, and from everything we're hearing, there's some leadership questions about Carson Wentz as well. But I think he'll do well down there. I think Jacksonville is going to be a very good football team.
All right, Steve, what's your take on it?
Yeah, I think Peterson will do well down there. I think, after the debacle they had last year, I think Peterson will be a breath of fresh air. And they are spending some money. Whether they're spending it wisely, time will tell. But I thought they gave Christian Kirk a heck of a lot of money. Which is probably a lot of these free agent wide receivers like Allen Robinson and, Devontae Adams, they're probably sitting back and saying, well, if Kirk's getting that kind of money, I'm better than he is, so I want at least that. But no, getting back to that, I think Peterson will do well. I think he has to be excited about working with Trevor Lawrence. I think those two will get along quite well. And don't forget that they're getting back Travis Etienne. I thought that was a huge pick for them last year, and then he got hurt. So they didn't have him all season long. I think he's going to be big for them this year. And like Mel pointed out earlier in the show, when you have a young quarterback, if you can run the football, it makes life a heck of a lot easier for that quarterback. And Peterson knows that.
Well, the only thing I'll say about Peterson, Jim Bob Cooter is part of that offensive staff, and Mike McCoy, they're very good offensive minds. That will help out. And I guess one of the few things that did go well for the Jaguars under Urban Meyer was drafting Travis Etienne. And I can tell you right now, and I've covered the team the last few years up there, if Doug Peterson gets them over 500, 5, 6, 7 years in a row, and they have any kind of playoff success, how do you spell the word statue? STATUE at TIA Bank Field. So, it's not like this guy's really going to, he'll be one of the winningest coaches when he gets 3 or 4 wins already going up that tree. And it's not like the standards really set that high in Jacksonville. But yeah, I'm on board with it. Anytime you can go ahead and bring a proven coach that's won a Super Bowl, then you certainly do it. I remember when I was a kid here, following the Lions, and it's too bad. I know you, Steve, would probably remember the name, maybe you, but when the Lions hired Don McCafferty of the Baltimore Colts, and we thought we were getting a good hire. The problem is Don McCafferty, I think, died after a year, but they made an attempt to bring in a Super Bowl winning coach. It didn't quite work out that way. But the bottom line is when you're a bad team, and we all know that this is the case, you're going to overpay for free agents. And when you overpay for free agents, it's one thing, but it's another when you overpay for free agents and you're in a state with no state income tax.
Yeah.
Tell me there's a little bit of this here that will entice you to take the ride and know, do you know the way to I-95? And no, folks, you're not getting any singing out of me. Okay, but I all in all, I think the hire. You better. I hope you guys don't get anything. You're going to need a new ear doctor when it's all said and done. And I'm not looking to break a Memorex figure either. So no, I'm endorsing the hire with Doug Peterson. But that said, we'll talk about Brian Dable of the New York Giants. All right, Mister Ellis, let's talk about this hire.
So I actually like it. I mean, he did, excuse me, he did a great job at Buffalo. Worked with Josh Allen. You know, when he was struggling, got him to, you know, obviously get much better. We talk about being an MVP. And he's teamed up with the GM that he worked with in the front office. So, I mean, listen, he's not going to run a quarterback sneak on third down at the 4-yard line. So, automatically, it's a better hire than what he had.
That's pretty good. I won't be able to top that, just so you know, JB. I may have a thing or two, but I'm not going to top that. All right, SB, go ahead.
Yeah, I like Dayball. I've always liked him. He's done well everywhere he's gone. He worked wonders with Josh Allen. If they have anything in Daniel Jones, they're going to know it quickly because I think Dayball will bring it out. The Giants have a lot of holes to fill. It might not show it this year in the NFC East, but I think they're on the right track with him. I think he's going to do a fantastic job there.
Well, it doesn't hurt that they spell insurance called Tyrod Taylor. So
Yep.
I don't know whether or not how that's going to work out. But you know what? When you have a capable backup like Tyrod, who I really like, then if Daniel Jones does slip up, then Tyrod's right there.
Tyrod was a starter last year for Houston.
It'd be something to see him get a chance to start and do something for the Giants because he's had bad luck everywhere he went.
Isn't that the truth, JB?
I would love to see it. As a Giant fan, I'm kind of rooting for him. I'm over Daniel Jones, so.
Okay. Well, you know what? You got Tyrod Taylor. It'll be very interesting to see how it plays out with an exceptional mind like Brian Dable. All right, Mel, what do you think about this?
I mean, anything's an upgrade over that train wreck they had last year. something about these New England coaches when they go somewhere, they act like they've done something. I mean, they think like they're made men. I mean, you know, you had what was the guy up there in Detroit? You know,
Matt Patricia.
He was terrible. And you know, you look at this guy here. He comes down there and they got him running laps and stuff like that for going off sides. That's stuff that you do in Little League. I mean, we did it when I was with the Broncos. I remember Dan Reeves did that, but that was a whole different time. A lot of things that we did back then, or coaches did back then, that they couldn't get away with now. But yeah, anything's an upgrade over what they've had there. You know, they got to figure out what they have in that quarterback. Obviously, they have to figure it out. I mean, this guy was a wide receiver coach. What did he really know about coaching the position? Now you have somebody in there who has a proven track record. He did a great job when he was down there with Nick Saban in Alabama, helping them win national championships down there. Then went up to Buffalo, did a great job up there with Josh Allen. And now we're going to find out, you know, they're going to find out, you know, what they have with Daniel Jones. He's in his, fourth or fifth year right now, coming up. You know, they got to figure out what they have with Daniel Jones to see if they're going to move on from him. Or maybe he can be salvaged. Again, you know, they put a good running game behind him. They do have a running back. Hopefully Saquon can stay healthy. They got to fix the offensive line, play better defense, and see what happens. I mean, the one positive about it is that they play in a very soft division. You know, people are going to talk about the Cowboys. I mean, the Cowboys, they're not great. They're just okay. They play in a very soft division. So, I mean, that division is wide open for whoever wants to take it. So that's a good thing that the Giants have on their side is, you know, they do play in a very, very soft division.
Well, I will say this, JB. I know you probably paid attention. When the owner goes out there and tells you that you've done a good job screwing this quarterback up, then obviously he hasn't really given up on him yet. So if you bring in a great offensive mind like Brian Dable, the best thing you can do, right, JB, is just to try to fix him up without having to draft at that position.
I don't know. I'm of the total other mindset. Let's start over. Trade Saquon. He hasn't been able to stay healthy. Buffalo should be reaching out to try and get him. But that's me. I feel bad we're wasting his career. And he hasn't been able to stay healthy either. But it's a shame to see because he has so much talent when he's healthy.
But what about when the owner is talking about Daniel Jones? Okay, he said, you know, we got to surround this guy with somebody. Is it that he really feels like he wants to hope that this new regime gets going, or do you think he's ready to move on? Judging by the soundbite, JB, that I heard, okay, that the owner felt sorry for the quarterback.
They definitely want to give him a fair shake, and last year was horrible. And his offensive line has been bad. In all honesty, if they had a decent offensive line for the last 4 or 5 years, Eli could have still played. Ben just retired. Eli's knock was he couldn't move. And with a line like that, there was no chance he could play. So, it is what it is. I don't see Daniel Jones as the answer, but hopefully they prove me wrong.
Tyrod Taylor's not the answer, I can tell you that.
What's that, Mel?
Tyrod Taylor is not the answer.
No, well, like I said, it'll be an interesting year, 2022. I also want to point out here in the chat room that we appreciate George Eichhorn looking at the broadcast, and we also appreciate Fernando Holiday Vargas, free paint dropping in, listening to our commentary from my incredible crew tonight. With that said, okay, Josh McDaniels, you're all too familiar with him, SB, with the Raiders. All right.
Yeah. McDaniels came back to New England, and he was going to take that job in Indy a couple of years ago, and Patriots talked him out of it to stick around and be Belichick's heir apparent in New England. And then Bill had been saying for a very long time he did not want to be coaching when he's 70. Well, guess who turned 70 this year?
Right.
So, and it doesn't look like he's planning on going away anytime soon. So McDaniels, he found himself a good place to go. I think he learned a lot from the debacle he had in Denver. His first time, again, he was a Belichick guy who tried to be Bill Belichick. It doesn't work. You have to be yourself. You have to find your own path. And I think he learned from that. I think he's going to do a lot better job this time around. I know he's very excited about working with Derek Carr. And I think those two, and they have a pretty decent offense in that on that football team. They can run the football. They can throw it. And they've added some nice pieces in free agency. So I think McDaniels is going to do well this time around. I think he learned from his mistakes. He went back to New England. He even said it at the end of the season, because he said the biggest mistake he had to learn from was how to deal with people, and he had no people skills when he was in Denver.
All right, Mel.
Yeah, I mean, everybody deserves a second chance. He's getting a second opportunity. He had that opportunity with the Colts. For whatever reason, he was talked out of it. I think maybe he was promised that Bill was going to retire in a couple of years or so, and he'd have an opportunity to get that job, or they just didn't want to have that Patriots-Colts rivalry anymore, and they wanted him to go further away, either switch conferences or get further away. So he's further away geographically out there in Las Vegas, still in the same conference. So, but I think as Steve pointed out, I think he probably learned his lesson from how he was treating people before, and I know he's made mention of that. He made mention of that in his press conference. I think he'll do well with what he's done with the offense over there in New England has been great. The things that he's able to do, and hopefully, the one thing that the Raiders did do is they ran the ball very well. Hopefully, they'll continue to do that, and they'll just build upon that. I like Derek Carr as a quarterback. I think he's always been kind of overlooked. I think he's a professional quarterback, and can you win with him? We'll see. Can he take it to the big game? We'll see. But I think he is a professional quarterback. He comes in there, takes his job very seriously, and he's productive. And he doesn't turn the ball over a whole lot. So I think that they have an opportunity to do some good things there. So they signed Chandler Jones, I believe, on the defense to rush the passer. So, I mean, I think, they got a quarterback. They got some guys that are going to get after the quarterback on the defensive side of the ball. So I look for good things from the Raiders. Now, they play in a tough division. And the division didn't get any easier when Russell Wilson came over there. So whoever comes out of that division, they're going to be for real.
JB?
Bill Belichick had to get to his second job before he became the great coach. He was in Cleveland. A lot of people forget about that.
Right.
Josh McDaniels comes back to the Raiders now. We'll see what he can do. I think it's a pretty good team. They, like Mel just said, they got Chandler Jones today, big pickup. They were a good team to begin with, but this division's tough. I don't know what you can expect from any of the coaches in this division because they're going to beat on each other, 8 times a year or whatever, 6 times a year. So it's going to be tough for any team fighting to come out of this division. But I think Josh McDaniels will do fine having a second job. He'll have learned from his first experience.
JB, you make a great point. I am so glad that you brought up Belichick's first job with the Cleveland Browns. And I'm going to add a couple more to that list, if I may. Number one, Bruce Arians, he was an interim guy for when he took over. Was it Chuck Pagano got sick, but at least he got a taste of it. Then he went to the Cardinals, and then he ended up going to Tampa. Having Brady doesn't hurt either. But a couple other ones that come to mind would be Pete Carroll, who once upon a time coached. Wasn't it with the I believe it was with the Patriots, wasn't it? I believe, and then he ended up
replaced Parcells.
Right, and then he goes to USC, and then he goes up to Seattle, and another one was Dick Vermeil, who ended up coaching the Eagles and ended up leading the Rams to a championship. So,
didn't Pete have 2 NFL jobs?
Yeah, I think he coached the Jets too.
Yeah, he coached the Jets. So he got, whether it's 2 or 3 at the most, there's no question you learn a little bit from each stop, and those are the ones that come out in mind. But good job, JB, for mentioning Belichick, starting with Cleveland, landing with New England. But I think Josh McDaniels will do right, and I think he'll appreciate the fact that no state income tax. I'm sure. I don't know what the taxes are like in Massachusetts, Steve, because you lived there for a while. You're giving me that upside.
Oh my God, they call it the state of Massachusetts. So.
Oh well, there you go. I love that line. But no, you don't have to worry about that in Vegas as long as Josh McDaniels stays out of the casinos, which I think he will do. He'll be all right. But no, I think he's going to do fine. We got only 2 more coaches to talk about. And then what I want to do is talk about some of the coaches that didn't get hired. All right, we'll start off with Dennis Allen, JB.
So, Dennis Allen was an assistant. He kind of just taken over for Sean Payton. You can't go wrong when you hire within your organization. I don't have anything wrong with that. I like when you keep coaches in-house. The Saints aren't going anywhere this year anyway, so it doesn't make sense to go out and make a splash. You get a new coach. Just see what you have with Allen. Maybe he becomes the next best coach for them.
Okay, fair enough. Steve? Yeah, I can agree with that as well. The Saints have a lot of holes to fill. Dennis Allen was there. He's part of the organization. The players know him. I think they're a long way off from anything. So give him a shot to see if he can build something down there. After Sean Payton, I guess they're going in the other direction with their coaching hire this time. So we'll see how it all works out. But I think he'll be okay. Again, that's a pretty weak division other than Tampa.
Yeah, and Dennis Allen actually was the head coach of the Oakland Raiders from 2012 to 2014. So he's another guy that's getting a second shot to try to get it right. Yeah, I think, like JB said, you know what? You got a guy who's actually, in a division. I don't think they're going to go anywhere. But again, I like hiring a guy internally to keep continuity there. I really do. So, I'm okay with that hire. And the last one we're going to talk about is Lovie Smith. This one kind of caught me off guard, so I'm going to lead off with this one. We talked about Brian Flores being interviewed for the job, and they cast a wide net for it. I hated to see David Culley get let go. I thought he did a very good job under adverse circumstances. If you want to talk about a guy getting a raw deal, David Culley did. So I struggle with the way that was handled. You obviously know a lot about Nick Casario, Steve, and I thought Brian Flores was, until that lawsuit came about, whether he would have been a hot candidate. But Lovie Smith is a veteran guy, and if they were looking for calm and experience, they got that with Lovie Smith. I think it's a pretty good hire because you needed calm and veteran, but you know what? I'm going to leave it at that. All right, JB, give me your opinion on this one.
I love Lovie Smith. I don't get why they got rid of Culley. And, the rumors were they wanted Flores, that Flores had the lawsuit and they went against it. And then, they hired Lovie. My question is, with the benching Watson all year and then hiring Lovie, are they trying to make the league look good rather than do what's good for them? That's the way I look at it. I love Lovie Smith as a coach. I'm glad he got hired. He should be hired. He's a great coach, but it just was out of nowhere. So that's the way I look at that one. But I think he'll do well if they give him the right personnel around him.
Well, I think what you're saying, JB, is the optics look pretty strange to me. They really, really
Without a
do.
doubt.
Yeah, I mean, you are so on target here, JB. The optics for this hire look very, very strange. And right now, I think Nick Casario and the rest of that front office is under more pressure because the last thing you want to do is go through yet another coach, and it wouldn't look good. And I don't want to sit here and say anything that I wish I didn't say, but to let two African American coaches go without giving them a fair chance would not look good either. Again, David Culley got a raw deal. I'm glad that Lovie Smith got hired. We'll see how it goes. All right, Mel, what do you think about this hire?
Well, let me go back to the Dennis Allen one. You missed me on that one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I will say this. I'm gonna take the wait and see approach on Dennis Allen because he's a terrible coach with the Raiders. Terrible, horrible. Right? And so I'll take the wait and see. And it kind of reeks of maybe Sean Payton kind of taking a hiatus and maybe coming back in a year or two or something. Call me a conspiracy theorist. I don't know. As far as Lovie is concerned, and you talk about David Culley, I mean, the guy was like playing tennis with both his hands tied behind his back and was still competing.
Right.
So how do you get rid of a guy? I mean, in Lovie, I'm happy for Lovie, but I wouldn't have taken that job because that's a train wreck down there. I mean, it's I don't know what's going on down in Houston, but I'm happy for Lovie. I think he's a good coach. I was very surprised that he's been out of the NFL for such a long time after he did what he did with the Chicago Bears and taking them to the Super Bowl. So yeah, I'm happy for Lovie. I'm not really happy with the opportunity that he got, but that's kind of how it's been for African Americans when you get a coaching job. You get the worst job. You don't get the best job. When Denny Green got a head coaching job, it was with the Minnesota Vikings, and the Minnesota Vikings were not a very good football team, but he made them relevant. Tony Dungy got a head coaching job with Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They called them the Succaneers. They were terrible. I mean, terrible. And he made them relevant. And that's kind of how it's been for African Americans. You don't get the very best job. So, Lovie, he didn't have to take it. I mean, it's not like he needed the money. He didn't have to take the job. He doesn't have anything to prove. He's a made man. He's coached the Super Bowl team with, I think Rex Grossman is a quarterback. So, I mean, maybe it's good for Houston because he's proven that he can win with a guy like Rex Grossman. If you can win with Rex Grossman, you can win with anybody, I guess. And I don't know who they're going to have down there. Maybe they're going to trade and get Baker Mayfield. I doubt it because why would Sean want to go to Cleveland? I don't know why you want to go there. So we'll have to see what happens. They're talking about, maybe Matt Ryan will come there. They're talking about the Atlanta Falcons are in the bidding war for Deshaun Watkins. I don't know. We'll see. But, I'm happy for Lovie, but I'm not real excited about where he ended up.
Yeah, and I'm glad you also gave me and talked about Dennis Allen, because you know what? Again, that's one of those situations where you kind of wonder, Mel, where that's really going to go. I mean, first of all, will Dennis Allen succeed with the Saints if he doesn't have a bona fide signal caller? And I think that's the thing where you have a wait and see attitude, right, Mel?
Unfortunately, it's bad for the players. I mean, these guys are going to go out there and give their, give their all. I mean, they're laying their bodies on the line, and the ownership's kind of taking like a pause. Wait and see. We'll see what happens. We'll give this guy an opportunity to see where it goes. But it doesn't really look like. I mean, they had a pretty good defense last year. Very good defense. I mean, they play defense. They got to figure out the quarterback position. We know that the one guy from BYU is not the answer. I can't Taysom Hill. He's not the answer. Jameis Winston is still out there. From everything that I hear, that's one of the teams that Deshaun Watson is willing to waive his no trade clause to go to New Orleans. So we'll just have to wait and see.
All right, Steve, what's your take on the Lovie Smith hire?
Well, we talked about this earlier this spring. I mean, Houston is an absolute train wreck. I mean, they're a mess, and you got the whole Deshaun Watson thing. You have a guy that's pulling strings that's not a football guy, and Jack Easterby, and Nick Casario is going to have to do a lot of damage control there. I think happy for, like Mel said, happy for Lovie. I think he's a really good coach. Why he took that? That's a good question. I mean, like Mel said, he didn't have to, but that's that's a team that really didn't need to fire their last coach, like Brian Flores. They were competitive every week, and they played hard for their coach. I think that's all you can ask when you don't have a very talented football team, and they weren't. They weren't a very talented team last year, but they stayed competitive. I don't know. I think Lovey will be just fine. He's a good coach, but that team I don't think is going anywhere. And once they trade Watson, who knows what's going to happen after that.
Well, not only that, who knows what the haul is going to be as well. That's something we'll find out as well. So, all right. So I know we've covered the 9 coaching hires. Let's talk about a few of the guys briefly about who didn't get hired and whether they can be hired. So, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go through the list I have, one person at a time. Okay. And then everybody will get a crack. I have 7 of them. And the one thing I should point out that I really think is important, I personally think many years ago, that had there been a Rooney Rule, me and Joe Green never had the benefit of that Rooney Rule, but yet he mentored under Don Shula, and he also went ahead, worked under Dave McGinnis in Arizona, as well as Chuck Noll. So I think, and we'll never really ever know, okay, that to me and Joe Green could have been a heck of a coach. And I had the opportunity to talk to Mean Joe Green when I covered the Cardinals actually at Sun Devil Stadium. And I think Mean Joe Green would have been a heck of a coach. That's my opinion. I did want to get that in here. But we're going to lead off with you, JB. I'm going to mention 7 coaches, okay, and tell me whether they'll actually probably get a shot and why they didn't get a shot. So we'll lead off with Brian Flores. Obviously, he's landed with Pittsburgh. We know the lawsuit could be a hindrance to him. But all right, JB, what's your thought about that, Brian Flores?
I'm shocked he got a job in Pittsburgh after the whole lawsuit thing. He should be a coach. There's no question about it. He proven he could do it. The Dolphins weren't the best team, and they played very competitive football. So, without a doubt, he should have a job.
Okay, we'll go on to Jim Caldwell.
Eventually he'll have a job, but I think someone will eventually take a chance on him.
Do you really? Okay.
Yeah.
Eric Bieniemy. I know we brought him up earlier. We'll bring him up again. I'm shocked that he didn't get hired in this coaching cycle, and I know he signed a 1-year contract to return as offensive coordinator for the Chiefs. Will Eric Bieniemy get a shot, JB, down the road as a head coach?
I'm shocked that he hasn't had a shot as of yet. It doesn't make sense to me. There's got to be something behind the scenes. I still look at how if 35% of the league assistant coaches are minorities or African American and other minorities, how you have 2 African American head coaches in all the National Football League. The numbers don't make sense to me, and there's more to it. I don't get it. It reminds me of back in the 80s when there were no African American quarterbacks, and then you had Warren Moon that came in, and then slowly started to change to where it is now. The best people get the jobs. If you go out there and win the job, you get to play quarterback. Doesn't matter what skin color you are, what nationality you are. And I wonder, the owners just say, I want to hire somebody that's like me, rather than go outside the box and the best person for the job.
Okay. All right. We go on to Raheem Morris.
Not so sure he'll get a job coming up. I wasn't a huge fan.
Okay. Todd Bowles.
I think Todd Bowles did a pretty good job with the Jets. I think he should be coaching eventually.
Okay. And we'll go on to Dan Quinn.
Not a fan of Dan Quinn. Was on the radio in Atlanta his last year there. I thought the team was just not prepared week after week.
Okay. Kellen Moore.
Not so sure on Kellen Moore. I'm not really sold on him. I like what he did previously.
Byron Leftwich.
Surprised he didn't get hired this year. I thought, there was a lot of talk about him getting a job. And, former player, I think it would have been interesting to see. I think he would probably do well.
Okay, very good. All right, I'm going to hit you with the same list. Steve, we'll lead off with Brian Flores.
Yeah, well, as we said earlier, Flores shouldn't have got fired in the first place. Uh, Whether or not he'll be a head coach again, I'm tending to doubt that.
Okay. Jim Caldwell.
I think he's going to get hired again. He should get a head job.
Yeah, I mean, if you can win with the Detroit Lions, boy, you better get an opportunity, because the last guy that had a winning record full-time coach was actually Joe Schmidt back in the 70s. Otherwise, it hadn't happened since. And the Lions, unfortunately, don't get many. Their coaches either go on to be broadcasters or coordinators, but not head coaches. Eric Bieniemy, Steve.
You know, we talk about him every spring, and it's like, why isn't he hired yet? I don't get it. I mean, he should be a head coach somewhere. He should get the opportunity to try, but I don't understand it. I think we all know the reason why.
Right. Okay, Raheem Morris.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about him. I think he's a really good assistant coach. I don't know if he's a good head coach.
Okay, Todd Bowles.
Definitely. He got screwed by the Jets royally. He was put in an impossible situation. I always liked Todd Bowles, and getting to watch him up close twice a year, when they were playing the Patriots. I really like him. He got a really raw deal, and he was put in an impossible situation. He should be a head coach again.
Dan Quinn.
I think I thought he was going to get the job in Dallas, honestly, because I thought they were going to get rid of McCarthy. I kind of don't understand why they didn't, but I think Quinn will get a head coaching job.
Okay, Kellen Moore.
Not so sure. I'm kind of on the fence on that one.
Okay, Byron Leftwich.
Absolutely. I thought he was going to get the Jacksonville job.
Yeah, he didn't want to work with Trent Baalke.
And I can't say as I blame him there.
Yeah, but Doug Peterson didn't have a problem. It seems like those two guys are getting along pretty well. Okay. All right, Mel, I'm going to hit you with the same names as well. And then I'm going to throw a curveball at you with one that you don't even have to worry about talking about, but only because I got to work with them a little bit at the Super Bowl this year. All right, Brian Flores, Mel.
Yeah, we talked about him before, and I said the only guy that would hire him would probably be Al Davis, but I forgot about the Rooneys. And I think I'm happy for him. I think he'll do a great job there. I think he's gonna mesh in well there with that coaching staff and with Mike Tomlin. So yeah, but I do think once the dust settles, that he'll probably get another opportunity because he's just that good of a coach.
Okay, Jim Caldwell.
Jim Caldwell, unfortunately, I think his name will probably continue to come up, but I don't think he'll ever get another opportunity, and I think that's a shame because I think, like you said, if you can win in Detroit, you can win anywhere. And he did a great job up there in Detroit with what he had to work with. And I think it's unfortunate, but I think his name will continue to come up, but I don't think he'll get another chance.
All right, let's go to Eric Bieniemy.
Yeah, Eric, maybe he doesn't interview well. I don't know what it is about Eric Bieniemy and why he has not been able to get a head coaching job. Maybe he won't get a head coaching job in the NFL. Maybe he'll have to take his talents to the college level and start out there and get a job, and then maybe come back to the NFL. But there's no reason why he should not at least have an opportunity to coach to have a head coaching job in the NFL with some of the guys that they've given opportunities to.
Okay, Raheem Morris.
I think Raheem Morris will get another opportunity. I think he was very honest when he did a self-evaluation and reflection on his time at Tampa Bay. He really didn't feel he was ready for that job. And so I think he's learned a lot from having the job, and then also from his other stops where he's been at. I know he was here in Atlanta for a little bit. And I think he will get another opportunity.
Okay, Todd Bowles.
Todd Bowles is, he'll definitely get another opportunity. He's a good football coach. He should get an opportunity. As Steve was saying, I mean, he was with the Jets. I mean, he didn't have a chance there. I mean, they kept getting rid of everybody. He didn't have a chance. They didn't have a quarterback. This is a real, real bad situation for him.
Okay, Dan Quinn.
Dan Quinn will probably get another opportunity, and I think it'll be right there in Dallas. I think, I think they have a handshake agreement that if something happens this year and McCarthy stumbles a little bit, that he'll be the interim coach and he'll get a job to be the head coach. Otherwise, he would have taken another job if he had another job. He didn't just stay in Dallas because he wanted to stay in Dallas, or he never really had never really had another job. And I think a lot of us thought he was going to go to the Broncos, and that never materialized. So, Jerry Jones, he's full of himself. He said Dan Quinn wanted to stay there because it's the Big D, Dallas, the star. No, he probably never had another job. Is what it ended up being. But I believe that if Mike McCarthy stumbles this year, that he'll be the interim head coach there.
Okay, we go. Kellen Moore.
Kellen Moore is a young guy. He's a few years out of football. I'm really not all. I know they put up big numbers, but I'm not all that impressed with Dallas's offense, to be honest with you. Their offense leaves a lot to be desired, in my opinion. I think he's a few years away from getting a head coaching job. He'll probably get one prematurely, but I really think he's a few years away from getting a head coaching job. It's far, he should be a few years away. His name shouldn't have been mentioned in this coaching cycle for a head coaching job, no more than Josh McCown, I think, was mentioned for some serious contention to get the head coaching job in Houston, which I couldn't believe that.
Byron Leftwich.
I think he'll get a head coaching job. He's a good guy. I think he has the right demeanor. I think he has the right personality. I think he has all the stuff to be a great head coach. He should have been. He should have been hired in this cycle. There's no reason why he shouldn't have been. And when somebody does hire him, they're going to get a very good coach. All right, I like him as a player. I've always liked Byron.
Oh yeah, no, he's definitely a good player. All right, I'll give you my take on all. Brian Flores should get a head coaching job. The only thing that will stop him probably is a lawsuit if it doesn't really. That's the only thing that can prevent him. Jim Caldwell, yeah, I'm rooting for him to get one. But again, the track record of former Lions coaches not getting one, to me, is unfortunate. So I don't think he's going to get one. Jim Schwartz is a former Lion coach that should have gotten another opportunity. Never came into play. Eric Bieniemy, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, whether it's in the NFL or college. Eric Bieniemy kind of reminds me of Patrick Ewing a little bit, in a sense, because Patrick Ewing was a guy that should have gotten an NBA job, never did, but he did land with Georgetown, and I know he had a tough year this year, but at least Patrick Ewing got the job. But I do see Eric Bieniemy getting one at some point or another, 1 or 2 years out. Raheem Morris, I'm like you, Mel. I think he's probably a better coordinator, but you never know. I've seen crazier things happen. Todd Bowles, to me, is a guy who could be the heir apparent to Bruce Arians. He's one guy that, when time comes that Bruce Arians steps aside, watch Todd Bowles' name get brought up. Dan Quinn, I think he could be the heir apparent to Mike McCarthy, but it'd be too bad if he ends up getting it next year, since Dallas roster looks like it's dismantling and free agents are walking right and left. So, let's see, I've talked about Todd Bowles, Dan Quinn, Kellen Moore. We'll see. I think we're premature on him. Byron Leftwich is another one of those guys that could succeed. Bruce Arians, I could see that happen. Now, one guy I'm going to throw at you guys is Eric Yarber. And, JB, I don't know if you had a chance to talk to him over at the Super Bowl, but when I sat in on one of his press conferences, you talk about a guy who's so enthusiastic and so experienced. He's an African-American coach who I think should get a head coaching job if he wants it. And you know what? A question is will he want to take on a head job? But Eric Yarber, to me, would be an intriguing person there. So I'm going to ask one more question before we close the broadcast, and that's this, okay? Is the Rooney Rule, Steve Balestrieri, doing its job?
No. No, it is not. I think it's obvious it's not. If it was doing its job, guys like Todd Bowles, Brian Flores would have NFL coaching jobs and others, obviously.
All right, Mel.
No, I think initially when it first came out, it did its job. And really, initially, it was just to give guys an opportunity to get in the door. Before, African Americans weren't even getting an opportunity to interview. And then all of a sudden, they started interviewing these guys. Like, oh, wow, these guys are pretty intelligent. They might be all right. They might do a pretty good job out there. But now it's back to the good old boy thing. It's who you know, nepotism. This guy was so-and-so's son. And, that's kind of how, this guy coached under so-and-so who was so-and-so's son. Now it's not what you know, it's who you know. And so, no, it's not working at all. They need to come up with something different because this is not working at all.
All right, JB.
In its beginning, the Rooney Rule was a great idea, but unfortunately, with every rule that's made for something like this, where you try to make things equal, there are going to be people that don't care about it being equal, and after a while, they're going to figure a way around it, and that's what's happened. In its onset, it was a great idea, but it served its course. We got to go away from it now, which seems counterintuitive, but you have teams that are just, bringing people in so that they can check the boxes and say, okay, we interviewed who we needed. Now I'm going to go hire who I wanted to beforehand. And it's a shame because people that are qualified aren't getting jobs.
Yeah, and I know what they tried to do with the rule to enhance it just a little bit is incentivize these hirings, whether it's the front office, because I know the Detroit Lions brought in Brad Holmes for a general manager, and they got draft pick compensation for it. These are for guys that haven't
I
been
thought
hit.
I thought the Rams get the draft pick compensation for it. I thought the team that had the coach or had the front office executive, I thought the team that they came from got the compensation.
Yeah, well, that's what I meant to say,
to.
Mel. Yeah, no, that's where I was going with this. The Lions hired Brad Holmes, and the Rams got the pick. And let me tell you, the
But that's the
Rams.
wrong way though.
I know, but this is the NFL. I'm not saying if it's right or wrong, but they're trying to utilize draft picks as a way to entice it. But yeah, where I was going with this, Mel, is the Lions hired Brad Holmes as their general manager, and the Rams got something that they don't value much of anything, and that's a draft choice. But I don't think the rule is getting the job done. And I'm with you, JB. At the beginning, it appeared to be all right, but like anything else, it's just a matter of time before things ultimately go back to where it was. So, guys, I can tell you right now, this was a dynamite show. I hope for a lot of you folks that are watching it, not only got a good overview of the head coaching hirings, but some of the ones that didn't get the job. And I am so glad that I had 4 people on here that knew how to talk it real well. I am so darn proud of you guys. Yeah, make me very proud once again. So, with that said, okay, I just want to point out to you folks, okay, that you can hear these broadcasts on Spreaker, Spotify, Apple, Google, iHeartRadio, wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find them on the YouTube channel, South Florida Tribune YouTube channel, and find them on www.southfloridatribune.com. I'll get my contact information. I'm going to let you guys take it from there. Okay, you can find me on Twitter at Tribune South. And if you want to go ahead and find me on LinkedIn, look up my name, Scott Morgan. I'll be more than happy to connect with you. And finally, you can email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com or like the South Florida Tribune Facebook page. If that wasn't talking fast, I don't know. Then again, I don't know if I know how to do anything slower. All right, Steve Balestrieri.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at SteveB7SFG. I'm on Facebook and Instagram at Steve Balestrieri. Look forward to talking to each and every one of you.
All right, Mel.
All the social media sites at Mel Farr Jr. It's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and find out what we have going on here in Atlanta and also in Detroit at melfar.org.
Okay, well, I wonder that who's left, Mr. Miami Dolphin jersey. JB, give everybody in the audience again ways to get a hold of you and how they can follow you, and let you know that we hope you had a good time tonight on the Sports Exchange.
Definitely. I enjoyed it. JB_ the program on Twitter. Everything else is linked there. And follow Sideline Sports 1 on Twitter to find out about Sideline Sports. Tuesday, 8:30 live, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. And every night, 4 a.m., DB&A TV and Quantum Star TV 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
And did you mention your Twitter information?
Yeah.
Okay, no problem. I didn't know if I heard it, but at any rate, you know what? JB and the rest of the guys over at Sideline Sports are all great. Eric Wilson, JB, John Shear, Jake Malik. All you guys are a great bunch of guys, and I love having you guys on when the situation presents itself. JB, you're just going to have to get used to us, pal, because we're going to make sure we feature you all over the WSFT network. So, meanwhile, on behalf of Steve Balestrieri, Mel Farr Jr., JB Ellis, this is Scott Morganroth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of the Sports Exchange, and we will catch you the next time. Good night, everybody, and have yourself an awesome weekend. Bye-bye.